Hello and welcome everyone. This is week 2 lecture, and I just want to go over a little bit about bud material that we would be using for extraction, and I want to talk about how we use that in solventless extraction. So when we're discussing the types of extraction material, we're always looking at the all over bud and the flower from harvest. So when you do that at the end of a harvest, you're going to dry and cure for a little while, and at this time some people have different methods, but along that period from the time of cut into your dry and cure, you're going to start sectioning out those buds into different categories. We call them grading of buds sometimes, and this is where the top large colas are going to be your A buds. Your smaller buds that are more medium sized to small are going to be B buds. And then you have, sometimes you'll even get it categorized into a smaller area of popcorn buds. A lot of the times companies will just classify A and B, A being the big ones, B being your small ones. From there, you'll get an even lower step or grade of trim, which will be your fan leaves and sugar leaves. Sugar leaves are going to be the leaves that are connected to that bud that still have trichomes for the majority of covering that leaf. If you're looking at fan leaves, those are going to be the ones that are almost like the solar panels for the plant. Those are going to be the ones that aren't covered in trichomes, but are definitely there to absorb the sun, allow nutrition to flow, and the chemical process to take place in that plant. So you'll see those different grades of trim or material for extraction when you're talking about price. Now that is reflected in the quality and size of the bud. So A buds are always going to be more expensive to purchase for extraction than your trim for sugar leaves and just leaves. Now when you're doing all of this trimming in a cultivation house, most of the time you're going to have a big tarp laid out on the ground or a coverage on a table in the area that you're doing this trimming. In the process, just from the flower having so many trichomes, these will be lost. So they get in the air, they fall down off the plant, they're stuck to the scissors, this and that. So it kind of gives us a couple more products to work with. Sometimes if you've cut your own flower, you'll have some really sticky pistils, you'll have trichomes, and a little bit of leaf material stuck to your gloves. And this is what we will call hash. This is a little bit of everything, the resinous material that'll stick to us. Sometimes you'll hear of hash balls or resin balls. A lot of the times this is from a grow house. They're rubbing their gloves together, they're rubbing their shirt, and they're collecting it all, and they'll get like these little brown balls, and that's what they'll sell as hash balls. You'll see them also as temple balls sometimes. It depends on how they want to advertise it and how they want to label it. And then we get into, now and a hash ball is going to be real sticky. Like I mentioned, they're going to be resinous. When you get into keef, this is going to be a real powdery, light trichome. So this is going to be still something that has flavor, still cannabinoids, things like that, but it's going to be real powdery. So with either or, so you can use bud, you can use hash, or you can use keef, and you can press these. When you press these with low heat, and when I say low heat, I'm referring to probably 120 to 200 degrees, depending on the press that you have. You would put these in a pouch. They call micron pouches. They're almost like a tea bag, if that makes sense. You put your flower inside, and you'll press it and compact it. Every pouch is a little bit different, so I couldn't tell you exactly how much you would put in. But you put in different amounts. You'll put them inside of 2 plates that are heated, the top and the bottom plate, and they're squished. As you're squishing this, the oil's going to release from the bud or whatever material you put into this little pouch. At that time, it's going to squeeze out all of the cannabinoids and the flavor that was held within that in that material for extraction. So in my experience of harvesting my own grow, I can tell you this is a lot of fun. The smells that you get off of your plants are going to be closely related to the smells that you get off of the concentrates that come off of these presses. It's a wonderful thing to be able to see and smell and be a part of, and it's a pretty quick process. Now you want to make sure that you're within a, the lower temperature the better, the more flavor you're going to keep from the terpenes. The higher the temperature, the more the terpenes want to burn off. It's a fragrance like an oil or something like that. The longer it's exposed to air, the more it's going to release. So we want to keep that in mind. If we're discussing a type of solventless extraction that's not pressed, you might see bubble hash. So this method is done a little bit different than how I explained the other ones. A bubble hash method is going to be done a couple different ways, but the main way that you'll find this is during harvest. You'll be out in a field and you'll cut a plant. You'll dunk it in ice cold water and you'll do what they call a cold water bath or a cold water rinse. And you'll dunk the plant in cold water multiple times, pull it out. Now the trichomes are going to release into this cold water, and you'll be able to pull all those cannabinoids out of the cold water. A lot of the times this is a beautiful extraction in a concentrate. It's really light in color, smells very, very good, and the percentages are usually a pretty high. I would say on most of your concentrates you're looking at 60 to 70% on hash and solvent extractions even. The only time that you're really going to get into an 80 to 90% category is usually with a distillate, and that's just because of them being able to separate those molecules very efficiently with equipment. So bubble hash is again gonna go right there in the 60 to 70% on testing. A lot of fun. They even have ones, if you have a home grow, you can actually buy baby washers. They sell them at some grow stores in different places. My favorite place around St. Louis is Grow Active Solutions. Bo Bradley up there runs a great little grow shop, and he offers these little bubble hash washers. You throw some flour inside or some trim. You'll run some really ice cold water, some even ice cubes inside. It'll do a couple cycles. You'll have a micron pouch that pulls out of the washer, and the water will stay in, but all the hash and the keef will stay in the pouches, and then you'll press that. So there's a couple different methods. Again, each one is just personal preference. What's most cost effective for the company, what's preferred by the customer or the patient, and then what's easiest for that technician to do. And all three might work together in what a company decides is best for them. In my experience of smoking them, bubble hash and live resin or rosins in general are going to be more tasteful. Now, everybody's method's a little different, so everyone has a benefit and a downside, in my opinion. I recommend trying them a little bit of everything. If you guys have any questions, again, Chapter 8 has really great pictures. You can also look around online. I know that when you're discussing pressing and rosin, there are great examples out there, great infographics. Also, if we're talking old school pressing, I mentioned that an original press like that I have at home is a top press and a bottom press. Both are heated, okay? And this is done in almost like an automotive press. So you would have this for like a bearings or something like that in most mechanic shops. This is something that we use in cultivation just to smush our flour and get the oil from it. Old school, like before you really started seeing these used, we were using hair straighteners. Yeah, I mean, you would find a straightener that was 2 inches in width, and you would find a little pouch for your flour, and you would just squish it in between. Hair straighteners have 2 hot irons. The issue that you would find in a lot of those were they got extremely hot, so you would lose a lot of flavor. You would still get oil, and it was quite messy, so you didn't really want to use it on your hair afterwards. But there are some options and different ways to do this, so take a look, see what you like, what you don't like. We'll discuss some opinions and things like that in the discussion post this week, and holler at me, shoot me an email if you have any questions or concerns, and I can't wait to get going and find out what your opinions are on this topic.